Hey, it's Andre. I just wanted to quickly share a dogfight that happened in DCS on the LFDM World War II server. And this is essentially just an example of how effective yet simple and easy to follow that teamwork really is. And as you can see here, Healer and I have just taken off. It's sort of the worst case scenario where we get kind of bounced right after takeoff. Close formation, minimal airspeed. Um, but the advantage is that there's two of us, and I think this is a really cool example of how we use the numbers game um, to essentially make make it an unwinnable situation for this 109 who's about to attack us. So at this point, about at this point, I spot him, and Healer actually turns into him to try to identify him. And this is where I have a tricky decision to make. Ideally, obviously, you'll want to be going into a fight with a combat spread. So I can either kick it out immediately to a combat spread and get some separation between Healer and I, or I can realize that this 109 is still in front of my canopy. I'm still technically offensive on him. We're offensive on each other, and I want to make sure to keep that offensive position for as long as possible in order to force this 109 to turn, and keep whittling down some of that energy advantage that he has on us. So as you can see here, I'm going to match Healer's, what essentially is his max rate turn, until he is no longer in, or we are no longer in an offensive position. So as soon as he crosses Healer's canopy, you can see that I drastically reduce my turn rate, while Healer continues his. And what that essentially does is, not only am I gaining back much needed airspeed, I'm also facing the opposite. Healer, I'm also making sure that Healer and I are facing opposite directions, so that no matter who the 109 decides to attack, he'll immediately have the other on his 6. If he decides to go for Healer, I'll sharpen up my turn and be on the 109 in no time. And if the 109 decides to go for me, then Healer will just simply continue his left turn and be on the 109 in no time. So already, right off the bat, within the first few seconds of the merge, this 109 is caught between a rock and a hard spot, and all I'm doing at this point is just watching him for his next move, seeing who he decides to go for. And as you can see, Healer isn't just directly pointed at the 109. He's just as focused on me as he is on the 109, making sure that each of us are just a simple 180-degree turn from each other. So as you can see here, the 109 makes his move, and that's immediately when I sharpen my turn, and now I'm on the offensive. And you can see here, because of our setup, we knew that the 109 was going to be on the 6 of one of us. Our job was to make sure that the other one was immediately going to be on the 6 of the 109, and that's what's happening here, with Healer in the front, the 109 in the back, and me in an offensive position, closing down on the 109-6. And at this point, I realized that the 109 was not going to be able to get guns on Healer as long as he kept that left turn. So I actually told him to keep this left turn up, even though ideally, in most situations like this, you would want to do a right turn so that I could get guns on this 109 more effectively. But I told Healer to turn left so that the 109 could not get guns on him. And at this moment, um, I think I probably should have told Healer to turn back right in reverse to try to get an offensive position on him, but I wasn't paying too much attention. I made the call pretty late, but that's okay because, again, as you see, Healer and I are facing opposite directions. No matter what, we're going to be able to, we're just a simple, in this case, 90-degree turn from being on the 6 of whoever's on our person's 6, if that makes sense. Um, so what happens here, I actually see an opportunity to shoot, and I shoot him. And the shots I get here are actually going to end up bringing him down. It's a pretty solid burst, surprisingly, but right after this, right after firing my final bullet, my attention is completely on healer at this point. I want to, again, get into that position where we can provide mutual support. And right here, again, we're in a combat spread. So even if I didn't land a single bullet, no matter what, we're in that position to where I can help him and he can help me. If the 109 decided to persist after healer, I could simply turn in on him. If the 109 decided to reverse on me, healer could just turn in on him, be on the 109-6. And essentially what we do from here is hook back towards each other, maintaining that, again, 180 degrees separation so that we're just a simple, at the very most, 180-degree turn from each other. Right here, we're nose to nose, but right here we end up being 90 degrees turn at the most from each other. And again, if I hadn't landed a single bullet on the 109, and if he had persisted on healer, I would be right on the 109-6 right now. Or if he had reversed on me, healer would have been on his 6. Healer could just do a simple yo-yo or have loosened up his turn here. But lucky for us, the fight was pretty short, and I think that's just such a cool example of how effective really teamwork can be. And I don't think many people realize just that you can essentially make your chances of winning any dogfight 100 with the only advantage being the numbers that you have. At the beginning of this dogfight, we had no advantage, none. We had just taken off. The 109 had airspeed, plenty of altitude, and he probably saw us before we saw him too. But this fight only lasted a few seconds because we were able to play off each other and make this an effective 2 versus 1. And what I see a lot from other people is when they see an enemy plane, they'll be flying along with their buddy and they'll just kind of both go off their own way and just kind of focus on only the enemy. And it's just essentially going to be turned into a situation where it's healer versus the 109 and then Andre versus the 109. It's going to be two 1 versus 1s instead of a 2 versus 1. And if you can play your cards right and play off your teammate properly, you can really see how effective the numbers game is, and it's really the only advantage you need.